Hello and welcome. American star Powers Boothe had played some tough roles over his long career, but none so physically challenging as in John Boorman's The Emerald Forest. Boorman had directed the wilderness adventure drama Deliverance, so really had few qualms about heading into the South American jungles. But what Powers faced was 5 months of shooting in the Amazon, working with local natives, often in extremely high humid temperatures, and with the potential threat of snakes, alligator-like caimans, and big cats lurking in the forest undergrowth. And then, of course, there was the sickness, diarrhoea and dysentery. Even his Emmy Award-winning title role of Reverend Jim Jones in the 1980 Guyana Tragedy, the story of Jim Jones miniseries, didn't quite prepare him for the experience. With his deep, powerful voice, Powers went on to play many authoritarian roles such as military officers, detectives and political operatives, including in Oliver Stone's Nixon. But it was this role as a father desperately searching for his kidnapped son that was among his physically most difficult. I caught up with Powers just a few months after they'd finished shooting, and we chatted about his experiences.
Well, the furthest away we were actually civilization was in Caracas the last week we shot, and that there was what you call a hotel. It was sort of barracks, and you could get a meal. There was nothing between us and there was like 300 miles of jungle in any direction you went, at least until you got to another city or whatever. The majority of the time we were in decent accommodations, but the jungle is just totally surrounding you. So, yeah, there was a silence that was kind of permeating, but then we shot so much around water. It was constant streams, that kind of sound. But even when you thought that there was no sound, if you concentrated and just began to listen, you'd hear all these things crawling and birds and different little.
What made you trouble during the shooting?
How did you define trouble?
Well, physical problems, yeah. It would look to be a very dangerous location, but you can never tell what's actually behind the camera.
Well, it was. I mean, we were always in it. I mean, it wasn't like we walked up to the trees and back here this was all nice and comfortable. It wasn't ever like that. You were always aware each day that you went to work that anything could happen. You always knew there were snakes. You always knew there were cats somewhere around. At night in Caracas, you could actually hear them howling. You'd hear this kind of sounds. It's both invigorating and scared the hell out of you. But then the crew would capture the snakes, and as the one doctor who was on set told us, he said, it really doesn't matter if I'm here when a snake, one of these particular kind of snakes bite you, because you're going to die within a minute and a half.
What sort of snakes are they?
I don't know the name of them exactly, but the Indians refer to them as 5-steppers and 10-steppers. In other words, if you're bitten, you're going to die within 5 steps or 10 steps. So, yeah, but basically the difference in that, I mean, there were snakes and gators and things like that around, but the difference was it was an element that I was aware of. I mean, that I had some knowledge of it. I didn't have any first-hand knowledge of whatever would happen in Brazil or in the jungles. Probably it's just as dangerous in the swamps of Louisiana as it is in the Amazonian jungle, but at least in Louisiana you're not going to maybe catch malaria or yellow fever or whatever.
What was there any illness or physical problems at all?
Oh, there were people that had incredible diarrhea or
dysentery.
Well, close, similar to it. And there was some hepatitis, a couple of people. The worst that I ever had was kind of a strange flu that started with a dry cough that wouldn't stop. And that lasted for about 2 weeks, and then you cough for another 2 weeks before you ended. It didn't matter what drugs you took or whatever. It was just going to take that long a time. We were extremely fortunate. Extremely fortunate. It was all around you. You knew on any day you would become very ill or something could happen to you, but it just attracted to things that had to deal with man against the elements and surviving and breaking life down to its simplest forms. The wonderful thing I think about this particular film, and among the many things that attracted me to it, was that there is a lot of action and adventure in it, but that's just one layer of the story. There's terrific relationships in it that has to do with environmental problems and the basic human sociological problems. And the challenge, I think, for us all, especially for John, was to incorporate all those elements, but just basically to make it a through-line story and something that was also an entertainment. And I feel we're successful. So I think we helped to make the world aware of it. It may do some good, but at the same time, Brazil is in such a discovery stage, an industrialization stage, that they are going to develop and harness their natural resources to support their country, and you can't really blame them, since they probably have the largest national debt of any country in the world. So you can understand both sides of the problem, but the things that impressed me was that they are just not aware of it, and I can understand, because when you're there and you're in it, it just goes on and on, mile after mile after mile of endless jungle, and the very thought that it's no longer going to exist can hardly penetrate your consciousness. But they do absurd things like when they built the dam at Tucuruí, they, as you know, or may or may not know, all the corporations or companies basically in Brazil are owned by the government, and they knew that they were going to flood so many thousands of kilometers of area. There are millions of dollars worth of timber there, and they let the contract to a forestry service that was owned again by the government. When they came in, they paid them a tremendous amount up front, and they came in and cleared a small area, a lot of publicity, and then here it is almost 10 years later when the dam is ready to be flooded, and that's all they've done besides take the money. And so they had no choice but to go ahead and flood the area, and they know all this timber is going down. But the key is they also know that when the timber rots, I mean, it'll go through the dam, that's not the problem, but it causes an acidity in the water that not only attracts malaria mosquitoes, but attracts a kind of mosquito that causes a disease that's sort of like leprosy.
This is in reality, you feel?
Yes, absolutely. They know that this is what's going to happen, but still they wouldn't clear the damn timber.
So all of that element of it was actually based in the film was actually based on fact as well, about the dam building and. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's not. They make the observation in the press kit that it is based on a true story, but they tend only to describe the disappearance of the son.
Sure. Right. But John very carefully researched the country, and he looked for. I think he looked for something that would basically to contrast the two worlds, the clash of the two worlds. Not only the clash of the two individual tribes, but the clash of my world and all of that life. And I think the film is about a loss of innocence in a lot of different ways, exposure of the tribe naturally to the outside world, but also exposure of my character to their world, and kind of it's not that he immediately goes, well, I'm going to go destroy this dam and I'm going to play this. No, it's like, wait a minute, it gets much more basic than that. It's we go through education and whatever and try to achieve certain things in life and think that we are bettering ourselves in our minds and our bodies and all this. And when Markham gets into the tribe and he realizes that his son has essentially everything that you would desire for your child, and that he is physically strong, he is in control of his environment, he's the master of his circumstances, in love, he's happy. So what could my world possibly offer him it'll be better. Well, in my personal life, I have a small ranch in Texas that I go to as often as I can because it puts me back in touch with the reality of life and feeds me personally, so that when I go back to LA or go to work, I feel portray real human beings much better than if my value system was based simply in a Hollywood frame, which is a very unrealistic thing. I don't know. What other way to comment except I feel that John naturally believes in the concepts of the film and that element you're talking about. But one of the things that I enjoy most about the picture is that it doesn't stand on a soapbox and preach to you or anything like that. It's sort of it allows you to leave the film and think about things, to make your own decisions and hopefully have discussions about it, which this day and time in filmmaking I think is very rare.
Just on the filmmaking side of it, one of the things that did slightly disappoint me was the almost perfunctory sort of attention to the dialogue at the beginning and near the end of the film in English. Where you're talking with Meg and so on, and I mean, when you go with the journalist into the jungle, and at one point it was a let's camp here, okay,
right,
kind of thing. I mean, to me it didn't. I mean, just sort of flat, as if they'd all their attention had been given to the middle part of the picture and getting which I understand completely, of getting the detail and the logistics of the jungle and the Indians and the relationship there. Right.
Well, I don't know exactly what you're asking.
I'm really making an observation. I just was wondering if you perhaps felt that way about it. I mean, what I'm saying, I guess.
Yes, I understand. I think that, I mean, the only thing I can say is that I felt that the emotional life and therefore the layers of the characters came through in such other ways that the dialogue sometimes got in the way. I'm not defending that statement particularly, except that as an actor you try to take the material you're given and make it work the best way it can. And for instance, we found there were a lot of scenes back in the apartment with Meg or with anyone back in civilization, that after we'd been in the jungle for so long, that it was jarring to the film itself to come back into just sort of normal conversation.
Yeah.
It was jarring to the audience and really kind of didn't help the film. It's not justification, it's just the way it worked out.
Yeah. Can I ask you a little bit about the Indians that actually worked on the film? I mean, what was their awareness of civilization? How far had they been brought into civilization before? Were they living in sort of slum villages on the outskirts of the
ones, the main tribe people were, so most of them had certainly, they were no more than one generation away from their people having been in the jungle, so they were aware of a lot of the elements. The four guys, when I talk at the mission, first show the arrow, they still live there. They're still back in there. An interesting thing happened. The one that I did most of the talking to, in between takes and things through an interpreter, I asked him, so where does he live? He didn't understand the question. And then I asked him, well, where's your home? And he couldn't get the concept. So he and the interpreter had a long conversation. Finally, he came to me, he looked at me, he goes like this. And he explained so much to me about it. I said, they were actually very gentle, sweet guys. And such a simplistic, easy approach to life that it's both refreshing and frightening, which is, again, one of the elements of the movie. The others had to be basically kind of retrained. But
sorry, for acting or for living?
For acting. Because that was a terribly difficult thing, is how do you have a group of people that behave as primitive tribesmen and yet can hit a mark for a camera. We got behind at the beginning because of the weather, but also because they just didn't understand that you could be doing the most marvelous thing in the world here. You were supposed to be here, and the frame of the camera is over here, and they didn't understand the concept that it has to be done here. So it was frustrating.
But they weren't actors. I mean, they hadn't had any kind of theatrical background at all.
Not really. Some of them were dancers, I guess you'd say, or had done some dance, but it was like a primitive sort of company in Rio. Not like major professional dancing. Some of them, they just found them off the street, basically.
What about the girl who...
Tira.
The Charley married, or has a relationship with.
Yeah.
Was she just an Indian too? I mean, without any training.
She's from. She lives in Belém, and no, she'd never acted before. Her family, they have a lot of children, basically kind of upwardly mobile people, but she has such amazing quality of innocence yet seductive person that it's just marvelously attractive on film.
Yeah, she certainly had. Did you find that the girl just had a certain look about her?
The one shot where she turns her head and the hair flops around and takes your breath away. It's so beautiful. It made it very difficult for me in some ways because of having to do a lot of teaching, but at the same time it brought me back to an awareness of just simplicity in the work that hopefully works. But hell, I didn't have any choice. There wasn't any choice. You knew you were working with amateurs, but you knew that they had all the qualities that were right for the story and the scenes and the people. So you had to break things down to the simplest kind of communications that and build up from there. You try to do as much research as you can and all that, the normal stuff, but I personally try to get as prepared as I can and forget it and go into the scene totally open without making a lot of preconceptions or judgments about it, and allow the elements and the emotions of what are happening in that moment, let the scene play. But I basically did the classical Shakespeare and things like that. And everyone always said I'd heard all my life, if you can play the classics, you can play anything. But I think really what that means is that you get a discipline of technique and of reality in order to make it work that carries over into other elements of your work, and hopefully make it better. But really, at this point in time, I just try to forget all that. I just try to go to work and do my work and tell the truth. I usually like to go to something that's been shot in the first week to see if what I think I look like and everything is in the role is what is actually coming up there, and if the core of what's happening is. And then I don't like to go because I think you begin to monitor yourself and to check balances, and it kind of takes away from the freedom of performing. But in this particular case, John wanted us to watch a lot, and so I went a lot. It is sometimes rewarding and sometimes it was an awful experience. But I find it very difficult to watch a film for my own work. There's nothing to do about it.
Yeah.
Sorry there.
The Indian dialect, that's a real dialect, I presume?
Yeah, it's based on a combination of many. The guy who actually did it worked with an anthropologist a lot, and obviously listened to a lot of Tupi, which is their language. But for instance, I mentioned the 4 Indians I talked to in the mission. 2 of them, they were from the same tribe, but 2 of them lived in one village and 2 lived in another village that wasn't, more than a couple of miles apart. I mean, that's basically their territories, and they had a lot of trouble communicating. they had certain words that were the same, but the majority of the time they had to go through an interpreter, more or less, which I found bizarre. But in researching the history and talking to people, it's quite common, because everything is passed down from father to son, and not a lot. The only time they really communicate with the other element of their tribe is like at the special ceremonies, or if someone wants to take a wife or something like that, and then they live within their own instructions.
Just clarifying again, you how did you get into the locations? I mean, was it did they truck you in, chopper you in?
Trucks.
Just trucks.
Yeah, which meant
So driving about how far each morning to?
So it depended. Sometimes it would be, well, there'd be, you drive to the end of the normal roads, and then maybe 2-3 miles, and some days it'd be 15-20 miles. Then when you got to the point of the trucks, you might walk another 3 miles into where it was. Like the actual Emerald Pool, where I would meet up with Tommy, was probably a 1.5 to 2 mile walk, but it was up and down and through the mountains and through rocks, and then you were there. And the crew actually brought a crane up there, piece by piece, and it was like hundreds of them. Pretty amazing. But the one comfort was, you knew with any luck at the end of the day, you would get home and have a lukewarm shower.
You would get home?
Well, that it was at least there. Go back to, you didn't have to stay in a tent. Which
you never stayed in tents at all?
No, but when I took the job, John felt that we would certainly at a period of time be living in tents. So I fully intended to when I went down.
Sadly, Powers died of a heart attack in his sleep in Los Angeles at the age of 68 on May 14, 2017. He'd battled pancreatic cancer for almost a year, and he once said he owed his distinct and strong voice to his early years playing Shakespearean roles on the stage.